There's nothing worse than not sleeping. And we understand that not sleeping affects everything in our life, but it also has a huge effect on weight and weight loss. So I just wanted to talk to you about a few techniques that perhaps if you are suffering from a bout of insomnia, or you've got a lot on your mind. I mean, we all suffer from sleepless nights from time to time. So the first technique is a classic NLP technique that works really well. And it's quite simply slowing down that inner dialogue. Because if you have recently or at some point in your life experienced not being able to fall asleep, I'm sure you're familiar with the type of dialogue that is going through your mind. Maybe it's oh, I'm going to be so tired tomorrow. Oh, how am I going to do such and such? Or maybe you start just trying to figure out how many hours sleep you'll have, and as that number decreases, you get more and more wound up and anxious. So there is a commentating going on through this activity of not being able to sleep. So my first suggestion to you, the first technique that can be very, very useful, is to just slow that dialogue down. And it might sound a bit silly, but I really do invite you to try this and to see how successful it can be. So perhaps if the dialogue was, I'm going to be so tired tomorrow, just slowing that down so it sounds something like this. I'm going to be so tired tomorrow. Oh my goodness, I almost nodded off while saying that myself there. So you can see what I mean. And so we're just slowing it down, really stretching those words out and stretching out the spaces between those words. Now, we're all familiar with the idea of counting sheep. Now, that comes from something that actually has a real good standing in science and how our brains work, how our subconscious works, because we know that our subconscious loves counting. And by counting, you're giving your subconscious something to focus on, one thing to focus on, so it's not darting around all over the place. But taking that counting thing a step forward, and research tells us that apparently counting backwards in fours is the way to go. So perhaps you want to start off from 100 and start counting slowly backwards in fours, and you might be surprised at where you manage to count to, or in fact don't manage to count to. So counting always works very well. Of course, there is once again this idea of people not being able to sleep because they've just got so much going on in their mind, their head is so busy, they can't stop thinking. I hear all of those things quite often. Another technique which has been well researched and has been verified is that if we write things down before we go to sleep, it is literally akin to pulling those words out of our head. So I really do advise having just a little book and a pen next to your bed and being able to just write down before you go to sleep. If it's something you're thinking about doing tomorrow, write it down. Even if you've got a little list, and it's really just for yourself. It could even be little symbols, signs, drawings. It is just for you to really get that sense of taking that stuff out of your brain, giving yourself some space. Because of course, when we have space, we always feel more relaxed. Breath. We know that if we can control our breath, we can control our state. And we've talked previously about breath work in the anxiety and the stress video. So once again, just coming back to your breath. And it is quite simple. All you need to do is focus on your breath. It's as if you take all of your attention and you are just focusing on that breath coming into the body and leaving the body. In fact, this technique, just literally bringing your attention to your breath and noticing everything about it, is one of the easiest steps into self-hypnosis. And of course, self-hypnosis takes you into theta mode, brainwave mode, and theta mode takes you into sleep. So that can work very well. And the thing is, don't get concerned if your mind starts to wander, because really that is what minds do. They do tend to wander. But if you get into that habit of just bringing it back, focusing on the breath, noticing what you notice, the temperature, that sensation, if you're breathing through your nose or breathing through your mouth. And then you take it one step further and you're imagining the journey that breath is taking through the body. Or maybe just imagining that on every in-breath, you're just giving yourself that bit more comfort, that bit more relaxation. And lastly, another technique, which is the long blink technique. Well, I just named it that anyway, because it works very well. And so how this works is you're going to be starting off from the number 50. And it is doing a blink, three things really. You're counting, you're blinking, a long blink, and you are imagining a wave of relaxation washing over you. And so it would start off by saying the number 50, either out loud or maybe in your head. Might be better if you've got someone sleeping next to you. You say the number 50. As you close your eyes down for a long blink, you imagine the closing of the eyes is a wave. I was going to say a wash, a wave of relaxation moving from the head all the way down to the toes. Some people like to engage a color if they're quite visual, a color of relaxation. So it would be a case of 50, blink, wave of relaxation, eyes open again, 49, blink, wave of relaxation, eyes open. And there is something about doing those long blinks which really relaxes you and works very, very well for taking you into that sleep that you've been looking for. So these are just a few techniques about sleep. So please refer to the workbook because we do go into a lot more depth there about sleep hygiene and cover off some other things which are going to be really useful to you. So wishing you all a very good night's sleep.